Hetepu, Assalamu alaikum, Namaste, Haroon Nefer. This is Qesankh my Keparu with another exciting video for you. And in this video, we're going to explore why corporate HR wants to fire you. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button on this video. That's very important. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button, which will let you know when I go live or when I upload recorded videos. And if you're interested in knowing more about my spiritual teachings, you can become a Patreon supporter for as little as $1, $5, or $20 per month. It's up to you. There's no obligation, and you can cancel at any time. You know, you'll get exclusive access to instructional videos on the esoteric, on the spiritual, videos that will teach you how to have lucid dreams, how to astral project, how to contact the ancestors, how to do a ritual, proper breathing exercises, how to properly meditate, because a lot of people don't know how to do that, and so much more. We've done a series on erasing trauma. You know, a lot of us have trauma, legacy trauma from our past lives and from our immediate family. So I did a series on that, and we're going to do a series on revealing the Bible, the secrets of the Bible. So become a Patreon supporter today. Last and not least, share this video with family and friends so we can get the revolution started. All right, now, namaste, grand rising, Haroon Nefer. Thank you for tuning in today to his broadcast, which is a very, very interesting broadcast. Now, I'm not going to just tell you about, the subject matter, meaning corporate HR and all that, but I'm going to also talk about how to protect yourself and do what's necessary so that you can basically come out on top. So the title is Why Corporate HR Wants to Fire You. And we as Black people are not prepared on an individual basis for what we're going to encounter with these corporations. See, these corporations have billions of dollars behind them, and they have contracts with the government, and they have to abide by EEOC regulations, the equal, I think it's equal. I don't remember the acronym. Let me find that out. It's been years. EEOC. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. All right. So, there's this whole discussion now about quota, and they're trying to make, the whole idea of civil rights, as quotas and things of that nature, which is totally a lie. This has nothing to do with quotas, and they're attacking universities who have engaged in diversity hires. What we have seen is that these corporations, left to their own devices, will not actively and fairly hire minority people. They will engage in discrimination. And we've seen this in corporate America, and we've seen this especially with Hollywood. So we know that there's no opportunity to get a fair shot, especially if on your resume your name is Laquifa or Shanae, But that's another subject for another day. But I want you to understand that going into the corporate world, you are a target. And for a number of years, I denied that. I didn't believe it was true. And many people today deny it. But rest assured, I shouldn't say rest assured, but it is true. It's true. You're going into a very toxic and hostile environment that doesn't like you. In fact, there's a saying which goes, last hired, first fired, which shows how, you are nothing to them. In fact, we knew that in the military, many of our brothers and sisters found out, and it was revealed that they were being used as cannon fodder, that they were thrown into battle, knowing that the stats of them returning alive were next to none. You know, so let's get into this. I mean, you go in, you fill out your application. Now, these corporations have to hire a certain percentage of minorities, because, as I said before, left on their own, they won't hire, do diversity hires. Historically, this has been proven. So, what they do is they will bring you in to meet their so-called quota, because you represent a minority, and that's good for them, because when they're audited by the EEOC or a government agency, they can show that they have a certain amount of Black people. But now that's being watered down, because now minorities are, access to civil rights. We see that other minority groups, such as Asians, Latinos, Mexicans, which fit under that, and white women, especially white women, are now having access to civil rights, more so than Black people. How did that happen? Well, I digress. Let's get back into the subject here. Going into corporate America, you don't realize that you have a target on your back, because obviously, if they're trying to meet their quota, they don't really want you there. Now, HR is usually the one that reaches out for the hiring manager. Now, the hiring manager may be a really good person and doesn't, quote, see color. But the minute HR realizes you are Black, then everything starts to work in motion. What do I mean by that? As I said, the hiring manager, may not see color or care what color you are, but HR, when they're canvassing the websites to bring in candidates, and they set you up for initial phone call screening, get the word screening, then they know what color you are. But when you get hired, let's say you get hired, again, they've met their quota. They have set it up so that the odds of you being successful compared to a white person is relatively small. Well, how does that work? Well, number one, they know that they construct the system to favor Black women. Now, I'm not here to engage in any gender war and say one gender is better than another, or to reveal the problems with one gender. I'm here just to tell you the truth. They will actively hire Black women over Black men, because Black women represent a double minority, female and Black. And what HR tends to do is hire a certain type of Black woman. I said in previous videos that when you see how these so-called corporations want to tout about how they're all inclusive, and they've just hired some Black woman or some Black man as their new CEO, you must understand that that Black man and Black woman has been filtered, has been tested. And in most instances, they are not for Black people. And the corporation has to make sure of that if they get to the higher level. So when you're hired by HR is going to make sure that they fill up their department with Black women. And these are a certain type of Black women that want to go along with the system and prove to white supremacy that they are in alignment with their goals. Notice what I said, prove through white supremacy that they're in alignment with their goals. And that is by making sure that they are harder on Black men and do everything they can to fire Black men or lay them off. So you get in HR Black women with a certain type of disposition, attitude, and thought process, which is to be antagonistic toward Black men and some Black women, surprisingly. So you start working for corporate America and immediately you start to see certain things. Like, I'm going to tell you that if you are working in HR as a Black woman, and most times that I've worked as a contract employee with corporations, and I've worked with a number of corporations, some of the top corporations in the world, I've noticed consistently that HR is full of Black women, but the company itself is 99% white people. So it doesn't make sense to me how a department, HR, can be staffed with all Black women, but they not see a problem with the company itself being run exclusively 99% by white people. How is that? Unless you're not doing your job. Unless your goals are in alignment with white supremacy, so you don't care. This is outrageous. And if you don't believe me, take a look go to your HR department. Just go in there and walk by and look in there, and you will see that the department is probably 60% Black female, and that the company is 90%, 99% white. Explain that to me. But anyway, what you'll find is that the standards are different for you in the company. Meaning that you come in 5 minutes late and your boss is going to chastise you or pull you into the office. Where Chad, the white boy, comes in 5 minutes late and it's okay. You see, since Chad is white, culturally, he fits in and he's friendly and he's easygoing with upper management and with other white employees. Whereas you're Black, they will say that you're standoffish, that they don't feel you're part of the team. Meanwhile, they'll welcome Chad, say good morning to Chad, have little conversations with Chad. But to you, it's a quick, hey, how you doing? And they'll walk away. No, how was your weekend? No interest in your background, no interest in your family life. Like, hey, we don't even know, Rashid, if you have brothers and sisters. We've never talked about that. Meanwhile, Chad, they know everything about him, including his social security number. Because they make an effort to get to know Chad on a personal level, and Chad culturally fits in. While you, because they take no interest in you, put that burden and responsibility on you, saying that you are standoffish. You're sort of angry. Furthermore, as I stated, they may start to micromanage you, where Chad, they give a certain level of autonomy. Even in the meetings, the conference meetings, you may come up with good ideas and you don't get credit for it, while Chad says one little thing and they make a big deal of it. Culturally, he fits in. And again, because you are disliked and not wanted, they pick with you. They pick at your work, even though your work is on par with everyone else's. Well, Rashid, you should have done this. You should have done that. Why didn't you do this? Meanwhile, Chad is allowed to get by. He doesn't have to excel. He can just barely meet their standards. But if you're barely meeting their standards, then you become a target for a layoff. They may even complain about your hair or your desk. Your desk is not neat enough. Your hair doesn't meet their requirements of the dress code. And let alone, don't be a black man with an opinion or a strong sense of identity. Then you become an obvious threat. I remember one time I got fired from a company, and I was so glad because I was tired of the manipulation and the games. But the thing that really got me, shocked me, well, I don't think I even got it. Was not, well, it was a 90-day period, and I didn't pass the 90 days of their standards. I don't know if that's actually getting fired or just what have you. But I was ready to leave anyway. They wanted to get a parking pass from me because I had a parking pass and I had left it in my car. So they sent these two tall, well-built men to walk with me down to the parking lot to get my parking pass. When they did that, I looked at the HR manager and I said, "You gotta be kidding me. These two people are going to walk me down as if I'm a criminal, take a perp walk where everybody will see and it will embarrass me." And then the HR manager, I guess, came to her senses and realized it was overkill what they were doing. I'm like, you're treating me like I'm a criminal and I've done nothing wrong. It doesn't, you getting the parking pass back doesn't necessitate having these two bouncers walk with me down to the parking lot. It was ridiculous. But because I'm black, there's a fear that I might do something. Going back to your work, you have to be especially careful with your work. When we look back at our ancestors, the Tuskegee Airmen, we realize that these men were not just good pilots, but they represented the best of the best because they had to be in order to be able to fly. So it's not enough for you to just do your work. You have to far exceed expectations, or else they're ready to get rid of you. And I'm going to tell you something else you have to be very, very careful of. If you're having problems with your boss, with a coworker, you may hear individuals say, document what's going on, then approach HR with all the documents, the dates, the incidences, and things of that nature. I had this white guy say a very racist joke, and I took offense to it, and I went right to HR. And instead of doing the right thing, and he didn't tell that joke once, he told a number of jokes 3 times. He came out of his mouth with something racist. And the first 2 times I let it go. The third time I was like, okay, I'm going to HR. And instead of HR, since this isn't the first time he's done that, instead of HR doing the right thing and firing him, they just gave him a warning and made him apologize to me. And he came and apologized, and he said, listen, I want you to know I'm being made to apologize. Which told me he wasn't sincere. But I want you to understand something. If you have a complaint in HR, such as you feel you're being picked on, and most times you're not going to be appreciated for your work, the minute you complain to HR is when those women start to concoct a way to get you fired. They may even work with your manager to frame you. Yes, to frame you. I've had many different things where HR had lied, hid documents. Yes, they will lie against you. They will fabricate things against you. Now, your recourse could be to get a lawyer or to contact the EEOC. Either one, if you choose to do so, you should also start looking for another job, because, like I said, they will actively try and look for ways to get you fired. They're not going to correct the situation, and if they do, it'll only be temporary. It's just a Band-Aid. You see, I had issues with my manager, meaning her yelling at me because she's emotional, her being wrong about certain things about my work. I remember one time she yelled at me in front of a departmental meeting. Very embarrassing. And I let that go, and she did it again, and then I reported her to HR. And then at that point, there's a buffer period where, HR does intercede and they make it seem like they're doing something to help you. But after that, they're trying to find ways to let you go. And don't complain about racism. That's a hot button. If you were to complain about something that you feel is racist, I'm not saying that you shouldn't report it to HR. You can, but the minute you do that, you need to start packing, because they're going to find ways to get rid of you. And also, you will not be hired by that corporation again. They don't want to rehire you knowing that you can file charges against them with the EEOC. Now, as far as the EEOC is concerned, to me, they're a useless organization, because when you go to them, what they will do is take a statement from you, and then they will send notice to the company saying that your employee, Rashid Johnson, has made these claims. And usually the company doesn't care. They'll respond because they have to respond to the EEOC, but they're not afraid. See, for the EEOC to intervene, you have to have ironclad evidence, videotape, eyewitnesses of someone there calling you a nigger. Otherwise, don't bother. But in some states, because all states work differently, the EEOC does, it is required that you file with the EEOC first before you can file a lawsuit against the company. And if you want to file a lawsuit against the company, you're more than welcome to do so, but you have to understand they have billions of dollars. They have no problem going to court. unless they're clearly in the wrong, then there's a possibility of a settlement. Another way is to do a class action lawsuit, find out if other individuals of African descent, ADOS, Friedman, FD, was Foundational Black Americans, if they have been discriminated, and then you can work with them to file a class action suit. And many lawyers will not want to take your case because it's difficult to win. That's why I say just start packing and looking for another company to go to. But the difficult part from people I have talked to and worked with, because I used to help people to file cases with the EOC and with the state. The difficult part is this psychological aspect. Because you're going to a company and every day you're facing microaggression. And it starts to mess with your mind. It starts to mess with your amen, your peace. And it's difficult to guard yourself against that. Because you know something's happening, you know they're talking behind your back, and there's very little you can do aside from looking for another job. Because if you already reported the perpetrator, whether it be your manager, another employee, or what have you, to HR, you know that HR is going to do very little. And you know your days are numbered there. And if you choose not to go to HR and go directly to your manager, that could create some friction between you and your manager. I went to my manager and said, hey, I didn't like the way you talked to me. You accused me of something that's not true. And that only created more problems. It didn't heal the situation. You see, the one thing that we don't get first and foremost in corporate America is respect. And in many times, and again, I'm not participating in a gender war, the individuals that are against you and plot to get you fired are Black women. Because they have been brainwashed and given a certain leeway. And they go along with the program of white supremacy. Now, this is not all Black women. I'm saying a certain type that get into corporate America and immediately align with the agenda of white supremacy and work to basically make you look bad, because Black women, for some strange reason, have been told by white supremacists that their competition is with Black men. So they see themselves competing against you. And if they can get you fired, then they see themselves as climbing the corporate ladder. So you may see, in most instances, it's the Black woman you're working with side by side that is secretly conspiring to get you fired. I've had this happen a number of times. It's a cultural programming. And in which case, I advise the same thing for you to pack your bags and go to another company where you don't have to deal with that. But it's emotional trauma that you'll deal with while you're there. No one should have to go to work and, instead of focusing on doing the best job they can, have to watch their back from their own people. You see, white men have cleverly adopted the idea of divide and conquer, and they have mastered it to a T, to the point of where they have indoctrinated Black women into the idea of white supremacy and to be their proxy or to be their taskmaster. And unfortunately, I'm sorry, but I have to address this. I wish it weren't true, but it is. Your greatest adversary in corporate America will be certain Black women. So you're doing the best possible job you can, and you're finding that you're being picked on for no reason. And you may wonder why. Well, I want you to understand it's not you personally, it's how the system is constructed to operate when it encounters a Black man or a Black woman. And many Black women who also have become targets face some of the most fiercest opposition. I've heard stories from Black women about how they have been treated by other Black women. The other Black women are very nasty toward them, plotting to get them fired. So I want you to know it's not just the Black men that are targeted, it's Black women, but it's a greater percentage of Black men that are targeted. Now, one of the things that you can do to assist yourself and help yourself is what I did was to put a mini shrine together at my desk. I had protection oils, protection herbs, a little statue of the deity. And those herbs on your desk can create a protective shield working at a certain frequency, a certain vibration to help mitigate the negative energy. Now, I want to get into some of the darker aspects to this. When you get hired by a company, you must understand that that company has a logo and an ideology, which is usually broken down into a set of acronyms. Now, that logo is a sigil, is a magical sigil, which is governed by what we call as an ergobor, or a spiritual entity. And that spiritual entity, that ergobor, is a being, a spirit that acts for the best interest of the company. And if you are in alignment with that entity, that ergobor, then it will show you favor and things will go easy for you. You'll get your promotions, you'll get your recognition. But if you are not in alignment with that ergobor, it will work to get you fired, to carry you through hell, to put you under emotional trauma. All because you're not in alignment with their objectives. You cannot be a spiritual being, an Osirian, and work, let's say, for a tobacco company. The ergobor will do all it can to try and destroy you because it's a conflict of interest. You see, this herbivore, this entity, directly creates the work culture. I remember in that instance I was telling you about being let go after a 90-day period. I remember the HR person saying this specifically. She says, well, it's just not a cultural fit. And I latched on to that, and I knew what she was saying, that I was not in alignment with the wishes of this herbivore, which directly created the corporate culture there of backstabbing, of emotional abuse. Because I remember, like, the department was all white female. The females were backstabbing each other, telling on each other, getting loud with each other, forming exclusive cliques. And I said, I'm not going to do well in this environment because I don't go around gossiping, backstabbing. But that's the culture of the herbivore. The herbivore creates that. Through the use of a sigil, it reinforces that. Remember, when you get hired by a corporation, you have that 90-day period, that trial period, and they are testing you out to see how you are. And you are also in turn testing them out to see how they are. And if you find the herbivore has created a toxic climate, a toxic environment, get your ass off out there. Leave. Before that herbivore starts to really do damage to you and your spirit. Because what you're going to find as days progress, you're going to have nightmares. You're going to have dreams, bad dreams. You're going to hate going to work. You're going to start to feel ill, sick. So rather than go through that, have your exit plan and have what we call as your FU money, meaning you're saving up so that you can leave and be okay for the next 3 months while you're looking for a job, another job. Because they say it takes about 3 months for you to transition to a new job. So I want you to keep these things in mind. And one of the things as advice, especially as we're moving into the holidays, they will expect you to attend their parties, their holiday parties. This is where they gather, they make small talk. This is where you should attend these things. Because many times these parties can afford you the opportunity of getting in good with the management or other employees. Because you want to be known not as a physical body, but on a personal level. In other words, don't be aloof, because then you will make yourself a target. But if you are friendly and getting good with the boss and the employees, then they are less apt to fire you because they have built a relationship with you, albeit superficial. They still have built a relationship with you. So attend the parties, but be very careful in your conduct. 10th hexagram of the great oracle I-ching talks about conduct. Treat it as if you're walking on the tail of the tiger or the lion. Be very, very careful in what you say and how you act, so that those things don't come back at you. But remember, they are not your friends. No matter how good you get in with them, they're your co-workers. He, she is your boss. They're not friends. Make sure you don't forget that. And if you happen to find a company that you love working for, and you get along well with your boss, that's great. That's wonderful. Cherish that. But keep in mind your station in life, meaning that you are a Black person, and that you will always have this target on your back. And if you forget that and you let your guard down, it could be disastrous for you. I want to thank you for tuning in. If you get an opportunity, please donate to the channel. Your donation would be appreciated. This is Qesankh Ma'akeperu, son of Ma'at and Tahuti. Ma'at is the beautiful goddess Heteru. Until my next video, Amun Ra.